5 minutes.
You don't have to yell at me, Joe.
You know what? Sometimes.
Anytime you need to take a bathroom break or anything, just let us know. Pause it. Or if you need anything striked off that you don't want to hear, I'm taking time to comp here, so I can always mark it later too.
You do a sound check. Can you hear me? Or you want me closer?
You're good.
Further
You can hear
away?
me good with the mic far away?
Yep, I hear you.
Just get your phone and everything.
All set?
Yep, you guys are good.
All right. You good, Joe?
I'm solid.
All right. Well, let's welcome back for another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
We have with us today our former Wisconsin Badger coach, Barry Alvarez, all-time winningest coach at Wisconsin, 3-time Rose Bowl champion, and former athletic director. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. It's always good to be with you guys. Good to see you.
Awesome. Good to see you, too. So, big question. How's retirement treating you? What are you up to these days?
Whatever I want to do.
I like that answer.
How you doing? I said, I'm doing great.
Awesome.
What do you do? Whatever I want to do.
Awesome.
No, I spend 6 months in Naples, Florida. My wife and I are down here, and we've had a place down here for quite a few years now. And so this will be the first year that we've been able to spend over 6 months down here. So with the winter months, we come here, and I play golf a couple times a week, and we have a good group of friends down here. My daughter and son-in-law live a few miles up the road in Fort Myers Beach. So, we keep busy and enjoy the weather.
Awesome. We've been enjoying watching your grandson playing for the Cowboys. He's really been representing the Badger story.
He has, and I'm very proud of him. I know he's happy. I've been to several games. So I went down and watched him practice last year and both years, and had a chance to visit Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones. Both came over to me at practice and told me how impressed they were with Jake, and the fact they were so happy with him. He actually surprised him. He was better and further along than they anticipated when they drafted him. But I'm really happy for him, and he's made a quick adjustment to the NFL, and hopefully he can have a long and successful career.
I'd say if he keeps playing the way he is, he's going to have a very nice career. And you mentioned Coach McCarthy, another Pennsylvania guy. I think between myself, you, Coach McCarthy, who represent Pennsylvania pretty well.
A lot of coaches have come out of here.
They have.
Out of Western Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania, period. And proud of that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Coach, I'm going to have a question for you. Your first interview, your introduction interview, when you landed and introduced yourself, and you told the fans of Wisconsin that you better buy your tickets now because you're not going to get them. My two-part question is, one, was that rehearsed or planned, or did you have that going into your head, or did you just walk in like a monster in the locker room and just throw that out there? Number two, follow up. Do you realize the impact that those words had to people from Wisconsin, guys like me that were recruited?
Even to this day, before you answer, Coach, and I don't mean to interrupt, and I do speak a lot, as you probably knew, but you had a good muzzle on me as a player.
We get to talk during
Exactly. You muzzled me well at Wisconsin, but now I'm letting it out. When I take my family or friends to games, when we see you say that, and I wasn't even in the state, I didn't see it live when it happened, it gives me chills seeing you say that, knowing what ended up following.
Well, let's relive this. It was my introductory press conference. And the day before we played the Orange Bowl, I was at Notre Dame. I had accepted the job. Pat Richter and I flew back. The Orange Bowl ends real late at night. By the time you go through the celebration and so on and so forth, we took a private plane. We left. I probably had 2 hours sleep. We got on a plane early, flew to Madison, went straight to, just freshened up and went straight to a press conference. And in the press conference, now, first of all, I'm running on adrenaline. I'm excited about the job, excited about winning, but I'm starting to run out of fuel.
Yeah.
And we're going through the press conference. Things are going fine. And then a reporter, and I remember who it is, I'm not going to mention his name, but he says to me, and it was very surly. The way I took it, he was surly. It's like challenging me.
Yeah.
And he
Which
says,
we know you don't want to do.
he says, what do you tell your fans who've been following terrible football and losing football games all these years? What do you say to them? I mean, that's what he hits me with. Oh, I haven't even coached a game yet. Don't blame me for all those losses. So consequently, I just said, I'd tell them this. They better buy tickets right now because before long they won't be able to. That's how all that came down.
I get chills just hearing him say it. Sitting right next to us.
Say it right now, I got goosebumps.
I'm out of shape and I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm ready to run through a wall right now. He's got me all fired up. So you mentioned Lou Holtz. I'll follow that up with, what was it like? Because you were the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
I went there as a linebacker coach.
Okay.
I'll tell you the story. Lou convinced me that I was very happy at Iowa. I was linebacker coach at Iowa. I wasn't the coordinator because we had a very good coordinator there, Bill Brazier. Had been a long time. He and Hayden Fry are the same age and went to the same, grew up together, and he wasn't going to leave there. But anyhow, I get a call from Notre Dame. Would you be interested? We've got an opening, and I said, no, I'm not interested. I'm happy here at Iowa. And Lou got on the phone and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a head coach someday. He said, you can't do that if you stay at Iowa. And I said, why? He said, because you're never going to be a coordinator there. Bill Brazier, the defensive coordinator, he's not going to leave there. He's tried to get head coaching jobs, hasn't been able to. And so you're going to be sitting there as a linebacker coach. You're not going to make any decisions. No one's going to take a chance on you. That made sense. So we talked a couple more times, and I decided to go. He said, no, I'm not promising you the coordinator job. But Foch Fazio, who is the coordinator, he isn't going to be here long. He had been the head coach at Pitt, lost the job at Pitt. He's either going to go take another head coaching job or he's going to go to the NFL. And you'll have first crack at the job. You'll get an interview for the job. And so, sure enough, I take the job. Right after that first season, I think we were, I don't know how many games we had, probably 8-3 or something like that. And Foch leaves to go to the NFL. And Lou promoted me to coordinator, and we won the national championship that year. And so Lou gave me that opportunity. I learned a lot from Lou, and he gave me a foundation on being a head coach, because a lot of people were coming after me after that first year. My kids were, I always made decisions on my own children. That after the national championship year, any job that opened up, they came after me. But my kids, my oldest daughter, Dawn, was just going to be a senior. I wouldn't want to pull her out of school. The other kids were in that position, but the main one was Dawn. The next year she was graduating, so it was the right time.
To your point with coming from Coach Holtz and what he taught you there, I think us as players, we knew you were a natural-born leader, but I think we also knew you knew the little tips and tricks on how to get that team to perform well. And before I go into the question, I'm going to mention one of the things that I think benefited myself, and after our time there that we talk about, I think benefited us as a team when you said linebacker coach, you rung a bell that you played linebacker at Nebraska. And I still remember, I think it was on Friday after practice before we went to the hotel, when we'd have like that 20-minute talk in the auditorium. And at the time, it was, I'm not saying we made light of it, but it was just a 20-minute talk. But during that 20-minute talk, the stories that you told us about, being hounded for tickets at Nebraska, and fellas, get your tickets done early in the week, and the way you set us up with, just the way you managed the program from start to finish, top to bottom. You kept the distractions away, which we'll get into later in the show, talking about the way college football is now. And you set us up for the best success possible. And obviously, coming from a Coach Holtz and the other coaches you coach with, learning those tricks and tips. My question is, as a head coach, we feel this is what we discuss as players, and I want to see if it's true in your mind. We feel you hired the staff that you knew was going to work best for you, and you knew that. Then when you hired or recruited us players, yes, you had some five. If we had stars back then, you had some 5-star recruits. You had the Chris McIntoshes, obviously the Ron Dane. There was a handful of other kids that would have been 5 stars. We had a guy like me that I'm going to tell you a funny story with this question. Joe and I were looking at old press clippings, and I found a press clipping from Scranton, Pennsylvania, that talked about my time at Wisconsin, and it mentioned my high school career back in '97, and said I had 112 tackles and 14 sacks because I got recruited as a D lineman. Yeah, I lied about all that. I don't know what I had. Coach, I'm a sales guy. I just wanted to play ball, and I was hoping what I did on tape was enough. But our thing as players is you took average players, you took good players, and we feel like you knew the type of players you had that you could allow your staff to tear us down. Because I'll say in '97, we got broken down, and I feel like we got built back into the team that you envisioned. Does that sound fair for what you thought you were going to do with that?
Let me explain to you, Billy. This is when I met with my staff every year. And for my very first meeting, before they went out to recruit, I sat down with them. I knew what type of player I wanted to coach. You know what type of player I demand to have. I said, before you go out, before you come back and present someone to me that you want to give a scholarship to, I want to make sure, one, he better be tough. He better be tough. Two, he better like football. Because what I'm going to ask him to do, they better like football. A lot of guys like everything that comes with football. They like the swag. They like the accolades. They like the trips. They like everything that comes with it. They really don't like to practice. They really don't like to play. They don't like football. And that's pretty miserable. And you guys know how I pushed you guys, and we practiced long, and we put pads on and hit inside drill twice a day or twice a week.
Yep.
Every day, 20 minutes, and that's how we got tough.
Yep.
But so that was the first thing. So a lot of times it wasn't the greatest player. I wanted to see that they're tough. If they're tough and they're athletic, I can teach them how to play.
Yep.
And so that's a lot of being able to read and then trusting high school coaches. I try to hire coaches, and Bernie Wyatt's a great example. Dan McCartney's a great example, that built relationships with high school coaches. They could go in and say, the coach could say, listen, this is a guy, and there's a guy at the other school, nobody's recruiting him, but since he was a young kid, he's been the best athlete in the county. And that kid's the toughest kid that I've ever seen. Those are the guys we go get those. And they may not be 5-star. They may not be highly recruited like everybody else. But the people that were close to him knew they would fit, and they knew what we were looking for. That's who we got.
Yeah. And you had that trust in those high school coaches, that relationship.
I wouldn't
with
go back again.
Yeah.
You can't lie to them.
Yep.
And I wouldn't lie to them. And then what we tried to do, we made sure we got those kids. We were going to be true to the kids. We're not going to run anybody out. And we're going to push them hard.
Yep.
But we're going to support them academically. We're going to do everything we can that they walk out of there with a degree and give them an opportunity to play football and treat them right and do the most we possibly can for them. Get them. We go to a bowl game, we're going to load you up.
Yep. We're
going to give you all the gifts that you can carry, so that you want to go back again.
Yep.
And all those things. It all ties together. It's just not fly by night. This is what we're going to do. It was I had thought out. I took the good and the bad from some of the guys that I coached with, and then I always had big eyes and ears with other programs, what they were doing. I make sure I eliminate some things and then take some things from others.
Sounds good. You mentioned academics, Joe, and I joke a lot about academics. I think Joe got a perfect attendance award.
No, I made 13 classes, Bill.
And
13.
Coach, I'll say, I did not make my schedule my first semester of my freshman year. I didn't know I had to go to those 7:30 and 8 o'clock classes. And I didn't think with college football that they send report cards out. I don't know if you remember, but I remember vividly. And just so we're clear, Joe and I do have a degree from the University of Wisconsin. And I think I only have it because you called me in your office. I was a redshirt freshman. It was January. And I don't know if you remember the words, but I do. I'll never forget them. You told me if I don't maintain above a 2.5 or above, that you weren't going to buy me a plane ticket. You were going to send me back to Scranton on the bus. So after that day, I was like, I better make sure these. Exactly. It woke me up, and trust me, I didn't schedule any more 7:30 classes. I made sure I could attend them. But no, we're absolutely proud of that and happy about it. But let's touch on the playoffs now. So you were on the playoff committee for quite some time when it first started. You were one of the original members of it. How do you feel the playoffs are right now for Division I football? I know us as players, we get frustrated that there's all these bowl games, and we go, I know we're going from 4, I think, to 8 or 12 teams.
Well,
but what's your feeling on it? What if you were able to make it the way you want it and make it perfect? What would it look like?
well, you know, when they had one playoff game, it was better than voting at the end of the season for a national champ because you decided it on the field. Then they went to 2, then 2 games, four teams. Now it's up to 12. The more, the better.
Yep.
Let everyone have an opportunity, because some teams naturally are going to get better as the year goes on. Give people that opportunity to play in that game. So I like the direction that it's going. I really do. But I liked it when all of a sudden when we added that one playoff game, you know, and that's when I was on that first committee. Yep. And what was the what was
just in your eyes, what number would you put it at?
Well, to me, I like this. I like 12.
Yep.
I think that's where we just went to. That gives a lot of people an opportunity. I think if you go much deeper in that, it's going to really water down the teams. And if you're the 14th or 15th in the country, do you really have a chance to
beat the number
be
one
competitive?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And let's not forget, you're talking about getting banged up and everything. That's a lot of games.
Yeah.
So if you get many more games in the playoff, you're really putting a lot of stress on the players. And it'll turn into a second semester sport where you'll go into cut into basketball,
Correct.
Cut into your in our case, semester break and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful with all of that.
So, Coach, along those same lines, you didn't coach in the NIL, and we're seeing how this is, transgressing along here, where you're paying college players and some of them millions of dollars. I think there was a guy that just negotiated a private jet.
Old Mrs. Quarterback, got a private jet deal where him and his family could use the fleet of jets anytime they want.
How that seems like such
that better be good.
Exactly. No doubt, right? How put that into words for us? How do you think? And again, how would you be able to navigate that now when it seems like it's just not the way it used to be, and it seems there's so many outside interferences.
I don't think it's sustainable what's going on right now. I would say this. If I were coaching, I'd figure it out because you have to.
Yes.
Like whether you agree with it or not,
yep.
You have to figure it out and you have to do it. But I really, whatever you could do for the players, that's great. But I was just at a Wisconsin function last week down here. Invited people. It was a $2,500 a couple, and then asked for donations afterwards. Trying to raise money for NIL. And they did a good job. They're doing it all over the country. I read the other day down here, I think Florida, a coach from Florida said, it's getting hard for me. I'm asking people, I'm raising money for a player. He's going to make more than I am.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that.
That's unbelievable. We joke about how you said you'd figure it out. We joke that we remember, and you could touch on this if you want. No big deal either way. But the rules that you had, and when we were playing, I think we looked at them just as rules. When we got done, we understood those rules unified us as a team. They united us, brought us together. I mean, players weren't allowed to wear earrings in the facility. Players' haircuts. The big thing that we had the issue with was, and I know my years once, I think it was around 98, when we knew we were about to have a good year, we really wanted that single photo in the program to have a little bit of facial hair, and you never allowed facial hair. And I remember we shaved, at the time we're like 18, 19 years old, we shaved 2 days before to get a thick 5 o'clock shadow. We showed up for the pictures with our suit on and everything, and there was shaving cream and a razor that Meatloaf had down here in the bathroom. He's like, you got to get it off. We're in the bathroom with a shirt on and the tie shaving.
So what you don't understand is I was very jealous of anybody that could have facial hair. My parents bought me an electric razor when I went to college. I used it once a week, and I didn't have to. I never had any facial hair. Couldn't do it. These other guys, they had small beards or mustaches, goatees. I couldn't grow any. So I was upset. So I was just jealous of you guys.
Just put it out.
You know what? That's just sacrificing something.
Yeah.
And having a little pride in looking nice.
Yes.
Now that's my impression of looking nice, but that's my prerogative. I'm the head coach.
Yes.
And dressing nice, putting a suit. I see guys being sloppy going to games. I get so upset I can't believe it. I want my guys. What I tell you, we're going on a business trip.
Yes.
We're going to put a shirt and tie and a coat on.
Yep.
And I want you to act that way. I want you to be serious. I want you to think about the game on the way to the game and when you get there. Those are things I believe in. That's part of the culture of the program that I foresee for us. And if you don't want to be a part of it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it's my team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we're going to do.
Well, the funny thing about it is, like I said, we just sort of looked at it as rules. And obviously none of us were going to butt heads with you about it. And we just followed those rules. But later on in life, I think that's where, and we'll touch on games and the success we had where we didn't, I don't think we joke. I know I'm bouncing around here, but this is more important. We joke about the success we had as players and how it wasn't that big a deal at the time because you didn't allow it to be that big of a deal. Like I remember vividly winning that Rose Bowl in '99. And when we went back in the locker room, we were all riding high. And you're like, fellas, we're going to celebrate tonight. You got winter break. We're going to be back in 3 weeks. When you come back in 3 weeks, be ready to go back to work because we're going to make history. You just kept that standard where, and we
Billy,
believed in it.
I learned, and I told you that night. I did a poor job in '93 when we won the Rose Bowl. I didn't do a good enough job. I had everybody back. We should have gone back to back. We celebrated that Rose Bowl too long. Our players celebrated it too long. We got guys that got sideways with things. They weren't doing things off the field like they were supposed to. We lost some guys. And we weren't near the team we should have been because we let that game linger on. I said I wasn't going to let that happen. I thought I told you that
Absolutely.
afterwards. I'm not going to let that happen again because we got a good team coming back. We're going to win again.
Well, and I think now it's fun for us as older men, as dads, as family members to look back, and now it's time for us to appreciate that. And we do. And we have fun when we get together, reminiscing, days like this, having the opportunity to sit down with you. But whether it's the, shaving, dressing up for a business trip, or, forgetting the success, going back to work, I think now we realize where back then it was just a rule. Today, I think whether it's Joe owning a coffee shop, myself in the past with sales, we look at the success we've had post-football, and it goes back to those paying attention to those little details. And I think that's what we're proud about and thankful to you about for instilling that in us. And we tell everybody, and that's why I say, my son plays football, and I'm happy for him. I'm trying to teach him the right way to do things. Obviously, I did a couple mistakes leading with my head too much, and the nose getting, a little bit larger than the normal Italian nose. But those little things that we learned throughout the journey have brought so much success to us later on in life that we're just grateful for.
You know what? I'll expound on that because I have nothing pleases me more than when I have a former player come back and tell me that the lessons they learned in football, they have carried on with them throughout their life, with their families, in their businesses. They use the same lessons that we had and the rules that we had. That was a carryover for them. And that's what makes me feel good that, my guys were smart enough that you carry that over. It's not, I played football, this is what our rules were. you define what those rules were for at one stage in your life, and whether it's your businesses, you use that with your employees or your families and all those things. That all carries over, and that's what my job is as a coach.
Yes.
You know, teach and grow young people.
Well, you've done it very well. Even in my time in law enforcement, all the little things that you taught us in football transgressed over into life, into every profession that I've done, and now including my coffee shop with my employees. It's all the little things. So, like, there's not a monetary value from the experiences that we got underneath you, but I can tell you your legacy carries on in people like us for what you did.
Absolutely. Now, we do have to tell our audience that in a previous show, when we were talking about life at UW, we did bring up some of these things that you've instilled in us. And one of the stories we told was attention to detail and being on time. And being on time is being early. And we mentioned a story we recall from freshman year that you deadbolted the door prior to the meeting started to prove the point. If the meeting is at 3, you better be here at 2:45. As we were getting ready today, we're like, Coach is supposed to be here at 10. He'll probably be here at 9:45 because it's Coach. We'll be downstairs at 9:40. We had this all planned out. And at 9:28, we're sitting around just shooting the shit up here. And I got the text, and now we're running to the elevator, freaking out that we pissed Coach off. Like, he's going to make us run gassers after we get done here in the parking lot, I thought.
The new 15 minutes early is now 45, though.
Exactly. When we come back
I had to rely on a run.
Exactly. Next time we come to Naples, we're going to be an hour early for the podcast with Coach. So I know Joe brought up NIL. The other thing so NIL, we look at it and we laugh. And part of me goes, I'd love to be in that era. But at the same time, too, and I think you've seen us, like you've seen me at Legends when I do an interview and I laugh with the reporters. They're like, God, you never spoke like this when you're at Wisconsin. Where now it's all joking. Well, I'll talk about anything else. And I'm like, well, we had a coach with us. Like, when we talk about Michigan, Michigan's got a good defense. We're prepared for the game. It's very simple. And that was right at the time. But once you allow your voice to come out and see it, the fun with it, I started thinking like, oh, I could have done all this with NIL. And I'm like, I don't think I could have with Coach. I don't think I think he would have put the hammer down. But what I was going to transition into was transfers.
Hey, Joe, what the heck does it mean when you say Cabin Coffee Altoona is a roastery? Are you making fun of the coffee or something?
Come on now, Bill. Sounds to me like you've had one too many shots to the head. It means we're a roastery. We buy our beans green from all over the world and roast right here on site. It's the freshest coffee you can get.
Is that why one place I used to go to tasted burnt and the other place tastes like brown flavored water?
That's exactly why, Bill. So stop on down to 2922 Meadowlark Lane. Cabin Coffee Altoona. Just remember, folks, everything's better at the cabin.
And Joe and I said this, the way kids could transfer at any time without having no penalty. And Joe and I said, and maybe it's just our era from the coaches we had to the players we were and the players around us. We took it as players that when we gave that verbal commitment, we were given our word. And we're not going to go back on our word. It's mind-blowing to me. Like, I've seen kids now with the COVID year, whether it's 6 years or how many ever years they have, they're literally at a different school every year just because they didn't earn the starting job or they're unhappy. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you what I told our coaches. We have 23 sports in Wisconsin. When that rule came in, and I sat down with the head coaches in our monthly head coaching meeting, I said, "Is this rules coming in?" And I said, and I also said it in a Big Ten meeting when everybody's complaining about it. I said, I don't have a problem with that. Everybody looks at me and they're upset. I said, listen, here's what I told my coaches. You recruited that kid. You've been in his house. You met his parents. You see if the parents are helicopter parents, if they stick up for him, or if they're disciplined parents, how he treats his parents. You spend time with him. You have some of your players on his visit spend time with him. You invested all that time. Then he's been with you. If you can't build a relationship with him and a trust with him where he doesn't, or you don't want to let him down, that's on you. And he wants to leave, that's on you. So don't recruit him. If you don't think the kid's going to be loyal to you, I said, hell, I couldn't get rid of them with a cattle prod. I need some of those scholarships, but guys when they don't want to leave.
We see some of the guys who are on our era before us that still think they're on scholarship, hanging around.
That's right.
Trying to get those meals and some issue gear.
Right,
But
this way.
we love that program, and absolutely. Let's take it back again, one more step back to our era with that 98-99 team after the 97 Outback Bowl. That was a rough year, and I mean, I think it had to happen. We were young. I look at it from an offensive line perspective. When we went into that kickoff classic, I think we were the youngest O-line in college football. Mac was the only one. He had 12 starts, and the other, the two guards, center and right tackle, me, Casey, Dave, and Gibby, we all had 0. Youngest O-line, fast forward 3 years to one of the more experienced O-lines. After we lose to Georgia in the Outback Bowl, we knew as players, just from your attitude and your assistance, that we were really going to work after that. We knew we had potential to get better. Did you envision what was about to come? The Rose Bowls, the Heisman. I mean, we knew Ron was good, but we had to be good to allow him to be good as well.
I can remember saying that in fall camp. Ronnie has a chance to win the Heisman. He's got the numbers from his freshman, sophomore, junior. Up to this point, we put him in a platform where he could possibly win the Heisman Trophy. But to win the Heisman Trophy, you got to win a lot of games.
Yep.
Nobody wins the Heisman Trophy on a 500 team.
Absolutely.
You've got to win a bunch of games, if not all of them, almost all of them. And that keeps you in the forefront and in the picture. And so when he wins the Heisman, everybody's going to have a piece of the Heisman.
Yep.
I can remember talking about that during camp. And so I thought we had a chance to be a really good team. I knew we were going to, because we can dictate a game. Be like running a wishbone. I can remember playing in the bowl game the year before, and I forget the coach now. But anyhow, he says, I hate playing in this game. It was Utah.
Yes.
Playing Utah. He says, hell, you get the ball. There's 7 minutes gone before we get it back. If we don't get a first down, you got it again. The quarter's over. Yep. Then we're going into the second half.
Exactly.
And we're going to run that ball down your throat. In that game, we threw it one time.
Yes.
We completed one pass. So 7 yards.
We do joke about our time with, and I said, I love all our quarterbacks at Wisconsin, but I remember talking about a guy that's tough as nails, Mike Samuel. I remember a game that we were on the road, we're in the shower, we got to win, and Mike was bragging to the O-line that he was 75% in completion state. We're like, Mike, you threw the ball 4 times. We ran it like 64 times. Like, what are you bragging about,
Yeah,
bud?
we won that bowl game. He completed one pass for, I think, either 7 or 9 yards.
Yep.
And people would say, why don't you throw more? You don't never throw on first down. I said, I don't like 2nd and 10.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Mike's going to throw it, and first down, it's coming out sideways. The only time he threw it well was when it's 3rd and you needed a first down.
Yeah.
And I'd rather him run the ball anyhow.
Exactly. I think 2 funny things that we just wanted to bring up, I wanted to say out loud to you. One was our first home game. So I remember we went kickoff class. Oh, we'll just address this to you, talking about, I think fans always think when you get a win, everything's roses and, butterflies. After that kickoff classic loss, we play San Jose State on the road. And I remember this day we won. I don't remember a lot of scores, but that score I remember. And I remember that score because there was 0 celebration in the meeting. And I don't know if that came from you down to the assistants, but when we met with Hubes to watch that tape, we scored 54 points. And old linemen were walking out of the meeting, holding back tears. And I'm like, how did we put up 54 points? And we're almost crying. But it was one of those, we just got shut out where we couldn't put the ball in the end zone when we got to the red zone against Syracuse. And then it was almost like, don't rest on your laurels after you put up some points on San Jose. We're about to go into the Big Ten. But we get to that first home game, and I'm excited, being a redshirt freshman starting in the game. We score a touchdown, and I remember Casey and I running off the field together right after we score, high-fiving. We're on the bench high-fiving, and I hear a whistle blow, and the fans start booing. There's a timeout called, and I look at Casey. I'm like, why are they calling a timeout? We just scored a touchdown. And I see you running down the sidelines yelling. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm on PAT. I'm sitting on the bench with Casey. So that's the only time I ever missed
That's why we didn't like all that celebrating.
Exactly.
Keep your head in the game.
After you've done it before. Exactly. But I don't know. You got anything?
Yeah, Coach, how did you go about picking your assistant coaches? Did you have that foundation, or did you know of guys? Your layout of your coaches when we played was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, when I took the job, I thought it was important that maybe I keep a couple that knew the lay of the land, knew the recruiting in Wisconsin, knew the current players. I did that. That wasn't necessary, really. I made some mistakes early on. I was able to bring Dan McCarney because Mac was going to come with me to Notre Dame. Great recruiter, energy plus. You want him on your staff. Bernie Wyatt was the best recruiter in the East, and they both committed to come with me. The other guys, I knew Childress, Cosgrove, and Callahan. We were all young assistants. The three of them were at Illinois when I went to Iowa. And the three of them had Illinois, particularly Chicago and the Chicagoland area, to recruit. And I recruited that area. So I got to know them. And I watched them. And they went to a Rose Bowl, won the league. And I had respect for those guys. So I had a chance to hire them. And so the coaches that I hired and kept mostly were the guys that I worked with or knew about, coached against, and had recruited. And here's the other thing. When you're coaching, you're also out recruiting. You know the guys that are working hard in recruiting. We would, most of the recruiters, the college coaches would stay at the Marriott in South Chicago. And you'd see the guys who were out raising hell at night and not get up in the morning till noon, get up at noon to have lunch and then mosey off to a school. And then you'd see the guys that are sitting there at the high school waiting at 7 in the morning when you get there. And you see the ones that work all day. And so I'd keep a mental note of that. Who are the guys that are working? And so those are the guys that I'd go out and try to recruit.
Makes sense. Well, we look at it like it was, I don't know. We call you behind the scenes like the Don or the Godfather. Like you pick the right people. I mean, those guys, we look at Hubes and I go, I know none of us would be where we got without Hubes. I mean, he was a blessing in disguise. Granted, we took a lot of browbeating from him, but well-deserved, and he worked well for us. But I did want to bring up two funny stories that's going to lead into a question. Everybody sees you, and you're always well-spoken. You look the part, you act the part, but they don't see that behind the scenes. I just want to tell two funny stories about the locker rooms. One was the Rose Bowl. One was the Ohio State game where we were down 19-0. And I think it was the Rose 17-0. And sorry,
He knows it better than you do. Yeah, it's your story.
I'm my bad. I got to do more with homework. I got to study better. But I remember at that Ohio State game, boy, we got our asses chewed at halftime. And I don't know what it was, but that attitude changed. And I still say winning the Rose Bowls were spectacular for me. Beating Penn State for me, a school that said I wasn't good enough, that was spectacular. But that Ohio State game, I remember coming back home after that, and we ran the ball like nobody's business. We just went power right, power left, nonstop. They were calling out where the plays are going to go, and we just kept running it. Hubes was like, we're running it until they stop us. That's what we're doing. I came back home, and Chris Pickett, who we were mentioning before the show, a roommate of ours that was on the team and ended up becoming a lawyer. I remember one of my fondest football memories. I'm walking upstairs, and I was so tired after that game. This was one of the few games I don't even think I went out to celebrate. I'm walking up the stairs, and Pickett's like, I got a question for you. I go, what? He goes, how does it feel to make 100,000 people shut the fuck up? And I go, Pickett, that first half, I couldn't hear a thing. That second half, you could hear a pin drop in that stadium. And that feeling, I wish everybody that's involved with sports could feel that feeling. And then the Rose Bowl, I remember you with the cane. It was a knee surgery, I believe. But I also remember a garbage can being tossed. And boy, that second half changed. And I think you knew you had to do what you had to do, and you had to give the speech you had to give. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. What's your take on that? It's amazing from us.
Well, let's take
we knew it was coming. But
Ohio State, first of all, I always liked to play Ohio State. Most people are intimidated. I never wanted my team. I never felt my teams were ever intimidated playing Ohio State. We like to play Ohio State. And one of the things I always did as a coach, I always believed I want to give my guys an edge. I don't know what the edge is. I'm going to create an edge.
Yep.
Whether it's true or not, I don't care. But I'm going to create an edge. And I tell you, everything we've done for the entire year is built on beating Ohio State and Michigan. Everything we do is physical. That's the only way you could beat them. We don't have the skilled players they have, but we can be tougher than them in the interior. And that's what we're going to do. And so I look forward to going up there. And then we're going to play our brand of football. We're going to pound it. We're going to hang on to the ball. We're going to run the ball. We're going to shorten the game. Play field position. Don't turn it over.
Yep.
All those things, and we can quiet these people down, And then what was it?
The Rose Bowl with the garbage can.
Well, with the garbage can, I had just had a knee replaced.
Yep.
And so I had a cane.
Yep.
And we were. That's the first time ever. Well, of all of our Rose Bowls, we were favorites in that game.
Yes.
Favorites, and we were sleepwalking the first half. So I had to wake everybody up. So I was pissed. I came in that lock. I was so pissed off how we were playing, I couldn't see straight. So the first thing I saw was that plastic garbage can. I grabbed that cane like a baseball bat, and the guys were just milling around. You know how you're milling around, you're getting something to drink, you got your. I hit that thing as hard as I could. It sounded like a bomb went off there. Everybody just, and then I kind of tore into everybody about sleepwalking and what we're going to do and just get your blood flowing.
Absolutely. It sure got our blood flowing, to say the least.
Was there ever a locker room discussion, speech, or after game where everything you said wasn't taken to heart? I've had leaders in my life where there's more talk, but there's no substance behind what they say. They try to rally the troops, whether it's in law enforcement or whatever, and you always had our utmost attention when you spoke, and especially because you could tell it was heartfelt, and when we needed it, you gave it to us, and it was a great example. But always walk the walk. You always have.
Absolutely. I know you did a good job with us not allowing us to put out chalkboard material or locker room material where we're not going to say something. Something that I think is stuck with a lot of us players from that first Rose Bowl is Craig James from ESPN. Do you remember the comment he said?
Yes.
Worst team ever to be selected to play in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. And boy, did you just fall in love when he said that, being like, we're going to fire the guys up with this
send
one?
Him some flowers. Are you kidding me?
To this day, I still can't forget it. I still talk about it. And I go, like you're working us up throughout the week of talking about the comment. We're getting worked up. And I remember the day of the game, sitting in my locker, and we always have the game day programs. I look at the program, and I think that 99 Rose Bowl was the 89th Rose Bowl. And I'm like, 89 games times 2, and he's saying we're the worst ever. And then to finish it up with, I had to look it up. I thought you said it, and you did. Your press game, post-game conference, where they asked you, now what do you think about Craig James' comment? You said, well, at least we're the second worst team.
I know one team worse than that.
Exactly. Beautiful. The one thing we started touching more on this podcast, obviously we're two offensive guys. We talk a lot about O-line, offense, run. But the one thing we started bringing in more and wanted to get your 2 cents on it is our defense. I tell people right off the bat when they start bragging about how good the O-line was, how good Ron was, rightfully so, we were good, but I go, we couldn't have won those games without that defense. I go, we got to the point during those 98-99 season, or 98-99 season, where we were so confident. Joe and I looked up a stat the other day that our defense in the 99 Rose Bowl, I think, scored an average of 10 points a game on defense. Now, granted, that's counting punt returns. Yeah. We had Nick Davis. With Fletch, we just assumed, as O-linemen, we never liked being down, coming from behind. But if we were down, we just assumed Fletch at some point is going to pick one off and run it back. I mean, I think he did it 6 times that year. So we're trying to also give that credit to that defense. Myself and Joe playing guard, coming around the corner, having to go up against, on defense, the Chris Cadorzi's, Donnell Thompson's, for me, Wendell Bryant in practice. Like when I went to the combines, coaches and GMs were asking me what player was the toughest player I faced, or what defense was the toughest. And I'm like, well, are you saying after practice? Because Wisconsin's the toughest defense I face day in, day out. The other teams are much easier. What are your thoughts on that defense? We look at it as spectacular.
Well, first of all, the thing we did on defense, we really emphasized fundamentals. So we were really sound. You have that was the important thing. Play good fundamentals, be sound, and our guys were tough. It had to be tough. We went against our offense inside drill every day. So they're tough. We're going to stop the run. And so you really had to work hard. We weren't going to let anyone throw it over us, and we weren't going to let anybody catch the ball and run. And you sure as hell were not going to run the ball.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's tough. I mean, you can't do that. It's hard to move. It's hard to get points on the board.
Yep.
And we weren't turning it over on offense.
Exactly. And to your point, we were in those years where almost everybody ran the ball hard, especially in the Big Ten. But then we had a team that was like an anomaly, the Drew Brees team with Purdue, and which ended up being a spectacular night with jump around being played, Drew Brees breaking the attempt completion record. And I remember you saying during the week to the defense, the bend but don't break. And treating those short passes as runs, giving up a couple yards here and there, but sticking strong.
Good, Billy. That's good memory.
I try a little bit. I do take notes every once in a while.
That's true, because he's going to throw it around, and you can't get frustrated. You just have to. It's a mental approach that we had to take. He's going to complete it. We're going to tackle. Don't let him run with it. And sooner or later, we're going to get a ricochet. We're going to get a pick.
Yep.
That's going to change things. And then when we get the ball, then we got to do our thing. But they're really a good team. They were when Brees was there. They were very good, and they were pretty good on defense too.
Yes.
And that 1 year we couldn't. You know, Mac had to get nasty with that one Roosevelt Colvin.
Yeah.
That we couldn't block him.
I remember Roosevelt even got in my head because Mac and I started figuring out after a couple years playing together. When we knew we had that slide coming our way, Mac started oversetting guys, allowing them to spin back in, and I'd be there to punch him in the face basically when he spun back in. And Roosevelt, he was talking trash all game long. And at that time, I was not a good trash talker. And I don't even want to say it out loud what I said, but I couldn't put the words together to sound good and basically got made fun of on the field by Roosevelt Colvin. But we did stop him a handful of times. So we talk a lot about our fun memories. And I'm not trying to zero you down into our years in those late 90s, but throughout your football career, what are memories that sit with you, whether it's early on in coaching or towards the end? Like, what is your takeaway when
Billy?
When
I coached for so long. You know, I still stay in contact with guys I coached in high school.
Yeah.
You know, I started as an assistant coach in Lincoln, Nebraska. I just got something from one of the kids that I coached there. You know, so there are so many kids, and you know, and I got close to a lot of players. So, you know, to me, the relationships with players and winning big games. Yep. There's nothing like winning a big game and celebrating wins. You know, and I can remember telling people, you know, this is, you know, I can remember somebody asking me about, what are you going to do tonight? We had beaten Boise State, and Boise wasn't Boise.
Yeah.
They were, you know, we were lucky as hell to win. We played terrible. We stunk it up. And I can remember Andy Baggett saying, were you ever embarrassed after a win? I said, never. I said, as a matter of fact, I'm going home tonight, and I'm going to have a hell of a celebration. We're going to celebrate this win. Then we're going to get to work tomorrow, man, because we got a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. But I just like to win.
Yeah.
It's hard to win. It's hard to win games. That's why there's so many coaches. It's a revolving door in the coaching business.
Yep.
So when you win as many games as we did, man, you got to learn how to enjoy them. And I can remember having this conversation with Urban Meyer. You know, Urban, he would burn out, but he never really enjoyed. You know, in visiting with him, he really never took time to enjoy wins or have fun. You know, I said, tell me your weekly schedule. What do you do? I said, Urban, Thursday night, man, we're going home. I'm going to have beer and wings in the locker room for my coaches afterwards. They're going to sit down there, shoot the breeze a little bit, and just be regular people. Then we're going to go home and enjoy the night, you know. And then after a win, we're really going to have fun. So That's what you live for.
Well, and you mentioning with coaches burning out, another thing we brought up early on, just about the way you coached and your philosophy. I remember during our years in the 90s, I believe it was on Tuesdays at training table, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you demanded the coaches' families come eat with the coaches at training table. Because I remember a lot of wives and kids being there one day a week, and I just thought that was, I have a brother-in-law that's coaching, know some other college coaches, and yeah, to your point, it's very easy to get burned out.
Yeah. And then we allow them during the season for families to come to the training table and eat. That's just part of it. Just part of being, because I was with a coach, Hayden Fry wouldn't let us even bring our kids to practice, to watch practice. And that killed me.
Yeah.
To have a young son who couldn't even come down and watch you practice. So I just didn't believe in that.
Yeah.
Lou Holtz was just the opposite.
Yep.
Lou encouraged him to be around.
Absolutely. And that's those two different philosophies. When I was in Green Bay, I had Mike Sherman as a head coach. He actually, when he got the job, gave all his assistants air mattresses to keep in their office in case they didn't have to.
That's insecurity.
Yeah.
That's insecurity. That's Billy Callahan did that too. That's insecure. Like if you're going to work harder than everybody else, what you find out, these guys are doing that. It's diminishing. You get diminishing returns from your coaches because they're tired. The next day you got to start and start with your team and get your team cranked up, and they're tired.
You got assistants with bags under their eyes. And we had coaches with 7 kids at home that, we had a tight ends coach that said, I will go home every night. And we're like, Coach, why are you so tired? He's like, I laid in bed for an hour with my wife, and then I got in the car to come back. It's like, how do you can't do that. So it's nice seeing the balance in those coaching staffs, yourself and the other coaches out there that have that good balance and see those rewards. Another story that Dave's going to be with us in some future episodes, but he's not here, but you are here. I want to bring up a funny story for Dave. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but when the team went to the Final Four in 2000, Dave and I were big fans of the basketball. I had my relative, Paul Costanzo, that was on the staff, who was getting me and Dave good seats. We were down courtside. We really supported the team. And when they made it to the Final Four, Coach Bennett called Dave and I in his office. And he goes, fellas, I want to let you know, if you'd like to come to the Final Four, you could come with us on the plane to the hotel. And we're like blown away, excited. Dave's all excited. But before we leave his office, he's like, just clear it with Coach Alvarez. So we're like, okay, we walk out, and I'm looking at Dave, and Dave's like, he won't have a problem. I'm like, wait a second. I'm doing the math, and I'm like, that'll be the first Monday and Wednesday of spring ball. And Dave's like, do you think he'll be okay with it? I'm like, I don't know. Let's ask for a meeting. So we ask for a meeting, go in the office. We tell you the whole story. I remember it like it was yesterday. You're like, yeah, that's fine. You guys can go. Have fun. And Dave starts walking out, and you're like, just make sure you're at practice on Monday. I was like, okay, Coach. I leave, and Dave still says to me, so are we going? I go, no, we're not going. We're going to be at spring ball practice on Monday. I go, it was a beautiful offer, but we
understood.
understood.
You bring that up because I had a thought about that year when I went to the Final Four. This is ridiculous. But they're playing in the Final Four, and I think I wouldn't call practice off so the guys could go watch the game. It was in the tournament.
Yeah.
They were playing the tournament game, and we had a Saturday afternoon practice, a scrimmage. It was a big scrimmage. And I wouldn't let the team off and the coaches off and myself because I wanted to watch it. So we would give periodic scores while we're practicing. That's so ridiculous.
I know, but at the same time,
it was important to me.
It is, yeah. And like we joke about it today, but I think we look back and we wouldn't want it changed. Like I think if we changed it, I think that would have changed. Like, why would we be changing? Like we had goals in mind, you had goals in mind, and we weren't gonna do anything different other than hit those goals. Back to you talking about practice. What do you think? When we talk about transferring, I think it all overlays. When we go back and watch a practice now, it's totally different. And we understand it's a different generation of kids, but there's no, like I went to a spring ball practice a couple years ago. And I took my son by the O-line and I was prepping him. I'm like, hey, you're going to hear a lot of bad words. There's going to be a lot of yelling. There's music being played. Nobody's yelling. Very little yelling, if any. Very little contact. what are your thoughts on the transition of football?
Yeah, but that's everyone is different.
Yep.
Everyone has different philosophies. Everyone has a different style of play. Now, if you're going to have the style of play that we had, you can't practice like that.
Exactly.
If you're going to throw it around, you can. You know, if most of your stuff is setting up pass pro,
yeah,
you can get by with that. It's all more footwork and hand placement that it is coming off and combo blocking and knocking somebody off the ball. So a lot of that is determined by the style of play.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I knew what we had to do for what we wanted to do on offense.
And we did it right. We joke around talking about those Rose Bowl years. Some people think we're on vacation when we go to bowl games, and we bring up that first Rose Bowl year. You weren't too pleased with the way 9-on-7. I think we were in the Coliseum, and I think we were doing 9-on-7 like sideways at the 50-yard line to get the tape angle, and we must have got sloppy with 9-on-7, and you started it over. We thought we were starting 9-on-7 over. You're like, back to period 1. We're doing the whole thing right. And once again, maybe it was Hawaii.
Yeah.
But once again, my point is, it killed us in the moment, but it had to be done. You know what I mean? Like, you saw it, you knew it. It sucked for us in the moment, but we understood if we didn't do all that over, probably would have played a much different game.
You're not going to play well.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was Hawaii. I didn't do that in Rose Bowl. But Hawaii, there's potential for a lot of distractions, which there were, and they weren't a real good team, but they were a dangerous team, and I knew they put a lot on the game, and I just didn't want us to go out there and sleepwalk, because that's how they beat people, and it's a night game that far away.
Yeah,
I mean you're walking into a trap.
Yeah, and
I wanted to make sure I had everyone's attention.
Speaking of that, and talking about you with your preparation, we've heard stories of, I think it was the 93 team. Was it 93 that you played in Japan?
Yeah. That
you reached out to different organizations trying to figure out the best way to travel, and guys walking on the plane and wearing sunglasses for a day. Was that all those stories accurate?
It's true.
Yep.
I read this. I'm not exactly sure where I got the information. But I got information that NASA, that you can, in doing this research, you can turn your body clock back 12 hours or 2, and it all had to do with light and dark.
Okay.
So I was trying to turn their body clock back 6 or 12 hours. So we got a schedule when it was sundown, and so we wore sunglasses the last 2 hours of the day, and we got up 2 hours earlier. The next day, we wore sunglasses for 4 hours. We slept for 2 hours more. I think we knocked 8 hours off. Okay. We did it for 4 days. Gave everybody on the team sunglasses, and so they were wearing sunglasses to class. It was 2 hours, 4 hours, 6, 8 hours. Yeah. One day, the whole day, they're wearing sunglasses and staying up later 2 hours every night. And I think that last day, and then when we went, I made them stay up the entire flight. It was a 12-hour flight to Japan, Tokyo. Stay up, bring books, bring whatever you have to do, but you got to stay up. Nobody's going to sleep. When we get there, we'll be right on schedule, right on their schedule. We get there like at midnight. Boom, you'll go to bed. We'll get up the next morning. We have breakfast. We go practice, and we're right on Tokyo time. And Michigan State doesn't know anything about this. Don't say anything to them. So we're on the same plane. We're flying with Michigan State, and they're in one compartment. We're in another compartment. Our guys were sneaking back in the middle of the night. And these cats from Michigan State, they're sleeping across. I mean, they're laying across. I mean, you couldn't find another place to lay down. They're all sleeping. Our guys are giggling and laughing. Yeah, we won that game halfway over. That was our edge.
Yeah.
That was our edge, because they were a good team.
Well, to follow that up, another edge I think you did a great job at was Iowa and the Iowa locker room being pink. We always get asked those questions. And I remember it was point blank. You looked at us, it's pink. You got any questions? We discussed it one day, and it was just, that's it. We're going to discuss it today. After today, it's not a big deal. And we didn't treat it like a big deal. We went over there. You told us everything about it. We knew it. Went over there. It's like, okay, it's pink. We just moved on. I've talked to so many other Big Ten guys that they were over there. I forget what team it was, but there's a team that played in the late 90s that wallpapered the whole locker room.
That was at Illinois.
But then when the team went there, everyone's peeling the wallpaper back because they're curious what's there. So, yeah, just
that was Hayden Fry. I was on the
little,
staff when we did that. John Chatham painted.
I remember hearing that.
But Hayden was a psychology major, and there were two colors that really mellowed a human out. So the doctor's offices, and that's, I think, it's powder blue and pink. So that's why he had that locker room painted pink. So no one knows this. I don't advertise this. What color do you think our visitors' locker room is?
Powder blue? No kidding.
Oh,
I've never been in it. I did not know that.
I had it done powder blue. I don't know if it's still powder blue.
Yeah.
That powder blue.
That is awesome.
I just didn't advertise.
Psychological
Beautiful.
warfare.
Well,
Still continues.
That you brought up Hayden Fry. I got one last story for you, a funny one. So I told you about that first touchdown in Camp Randall. I forgot the PAT. Well, fast forward to the end of my college career. Casey and I get selected to play in the Hula Bowl. Coach Fry was he was the honorary coach for the game or honorary captain or something. And Casey and I played the first and third quarters, and then the other guys played second and fourth. But Casey and I I was on PAT. Casey was center. Fourth quarter, Coach Fry, he's just walking around the field, and he comes and sits down next to Casey and I, and we start reminiscing about the 4 games we played, 97 through 2000. Just reminiscing about you, the teams, the way the games went. And Coach Fry had a Mai Tai in his hand that they were serving in the stadium. So Casey and I look at each other. We're like, that's the Hula Bowl. Like, let's give it a try. We asked Coach Fry. We're like, hey, Coach, would you mind go grabbing 2 more of those? He goes and gets 2 more Mai Tais. We're sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter because we're out. It's the fourth quarter. The game's done. All 3 of us are sitting side. You know, they didn't have the cameras back then with the footage. Side by side by side, all 3 of us drinking Mai Tais. Casey and I, full uniform with our helmets on the ground. Fourth quarter of the game, I'm taking a sip out of the Mai Tai, fully suited up, and I hear a whistle and I hear a timeout again. I look. They scored a touchdown. I didn't realize I had to stay in for extra point. So I put my Mai Tai on the bench, put my helmet on, run on the field. You know, it wasn't even. It's a all-star game. Nobody's even coming across the line. You're just snapping and kicking it.
Let me tell you a story about that same game.
All right.
You know, you have a rule. You don't come across. You don't block it.
Yep.
Trying to think who the other coach was. I'll think of it in a minute. But we're playing in the game. The game comes down to the last drive. We're winning by 1 or 2 points. No, it's a tie. The game is tied. They run the ball down to about the 25-yard line. Call timeout, and I bring my guys over. And I said, I'm trying to think who my assistant was. He was the president, head of the ethics committee. I said, I'm going to block the kick. He looked at me, you can't block the kick. I said, I'm blocking the kick. We ain't going to lose this game. He went like this. He just turned and buzzed off. And we snapped it. Donnell blocks the kick. I said, we're going to go block it. Go get it. We blocked the kick. I go running out there, and I'm trying to think who the head coach was. Guy went crazy about him anyhow. He started swearing at me, you know. He says, you know the rules, you can't do that. I said, you. I said, who gives a shit about an all-star game? It's a tie. That's the way they're supposed to end. I just blocked it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I think last thing, we'll leave it at this. I want to talk about Chris McIntosh having the AD job. I know he worked many years throughout the program, working his way up, and being able to have you as a great mentor, learning the ropes of the program. We're proud as heck to have a teammate of ours up there, and we're proud what he's doing. I've had a couple opportunities to talk to him about what his thoughts are, what he wants to do, but that the torch has been passed, and you've seen him do it for a couple of years. What are your thoughts with what he's doing in the direction he's going?
These are tough times in college athletics with We talked about it already, the change, and I think he's managing the change well. It's not easy where you got to supplement your players. You got to go out and raise money to take care of your players, but you have to, because that's to be competitive. That's what you have to do. But I think he's done a nice job of overseeing everything and allowing coaches to coach, holding them accountable, having them see that we're a place that wants to win championships, and give them the wherewithal to have the opportunity to do that. So I think Mac's doing a great job.
I also agree. I am thinking about reaching out to him. I know I used my football eligibility, but maybe I got eligibility somewhere else where I could try and sign a NIL deal through the university. So we'll see what Mac has to say. But Coach, we'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show. We're grateful to see you and have you on. And stay tuned next Tuesday for a new episode of 217 South Mills.
Bye, folks.
Awesome. I think we can wrap. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
Hey guys,
Thank you for listening to Joe and I today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you like what you heard, please give 217 South Mills a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go tell your friends about us. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'd like to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for sponsoring us. Everything is always better at the cabin. See you next time. And remember, folks, Red has to run.